to be able to see her with that confidence and the amplified version of herself, to be able to see Tara really come to life. You know, to be able to see that and be able to raise and elevate to another level. That's what the kind of things I want these guys to experience. I want every single one of you to experience it, but you can't experience it with your own success. The only way that you can experience that type of feeling is if you make other people better. The difference between Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant has not made one person better. Not one. He's good as an individual. He's phenomenal. Probably one of the best players that ever played. But Michael Jordan will always be the greatest. The reason why is because he took a team full of misfits and won 6 championships. The reason why is because he made every single person on the floor better. Not by just being in their grill, but by his elevated game, and he always passed it to somebody else and said, hey, look, you guys need to be at this level because I can't just be a one-man team. Does that make sense? And that's what I want you guys to be able to experience. We'll go on to the next one. Is that one? No? Maybe that's, hold on. Let me see this. So the last thing that I want to hit on. There's a little thing now. People, I like watches. I got Sarah, company got Sarah Rolex, our director in Chicago, got a Rolex too for 5 years of outstanding service. I said outstanding, dedicated service. Now, because the reason why I say this, and I clarified it, because I don't want someone coming to me after 5 years and be like, "Yo, I got 5 years in. Where's my Rolex?" Put it on my wrist. And so I made sure it was Daryl Lynn's like, "Yep, Daryl Lynn, you got a couple years ahead of you." But what I want to do is, what I would love for you to be able to do is, I'd like you to be able to get in 3. But that takes that dedication. That takes that. I mean, there's nothing that I've ever asked Sarah about. There's never nothing been wavering, and there's been trial times. We just had trial times on Friday. I mean, Friday night we had an amazing experience. You guys understand the highs and lows come together. High was Coley having that guest, $1,000 day, $1,300 day, leaving, bam, best week ever. You know what happened on Friday night, 2 o'clock in the morning, actually Saturday morning? You know what happened? I got a call from the alarm code. You know what they did? They smashed the window and broke in here and ruffled up everything, tried to steal some money, and I could see that they knocked a hole in our cash register. And that was on Saturday morning. When you guys were coming on Saturday night. The reason why we don't have a tint on the window is because they busted our window and we had to replace it before you guys got here. I want you to understand that every single person deals with adversity. The way that these guys dealt with adversity, you know what they did? They put a smile on their face, nobody talked about it, and they just went through their day. And you know why Brad put that post up? Is to let those people know that came after us and that did that, to let us know there's nothing that you could do to be able to steal this. There's nothing. You can steal money, you can steal product, you can take the damn mirrors off the wall, but you cannot steal what is in this place. Because what's in this place is not blow dryers. It ain't product. It ain't computers. It ain't money. It's a bunch of people working towards a common vision. You cannot take that away. I was telling you that I love watches, and I love watches because I couldn't afford them. I saw them, and I was like, wow, someday I'd love to be able to have a watch. Well, I think they're amazing. I was at the Mandalay Bay, and I had seen a watch called a Panerai in Toronto, and when I saw it, I was thinking, wow, that thing is amazing, but I couldn't afford it, but I just liked the story of it. And I saw a guy walk into the Mandalay Bay, he had one on. I was like, wow, it's a Panerai. I knew it. That's a Panerai. And I told him the whole story about it. He was like, oh. So as I told him the story about it, then he started telling me all about the watches, and he started telling me all about his stories and stuff like that. And I was like, dude, you need to ease up a little bit. He was kind of like the Chet of watches. You know what I'm saying? He was up in my grill. He was like, man, I got this watch. Get that. And then he told me, he said, you know what? I'm going to go up to my room, and I've got a couple watches that I travel with, and I'm going to bring them down and show you. I was like, I mean, travel with? I just wear a watch. That's how I travel with it. But I was doing my guess. I forgot about him. He comes down probably about 45 minutes later. He's got a box, and it's got like 4 or 5 watches inside of it. He opens it up, and he walks next to me. You guys ever working on a guest, and another guest come in and start talking to you, and they don't talk to the guest. They're just talking to you, and you're just kind of like, okay, well, you see that I'm working here? Mm-hmm. But he's like, oh, I got the watches. And he pulls them out and sets them on a tray like this. So opens them up. And he's like, oh, I got this watch. And he had like 4 watches in the thing. And he had me, and I'm doing with my guest. And then he's like, no, you need to check this one out. Put it in my hand. And I was like, okay, well, I'm highlighting. And I was like, oh, wow, that's so beautiful. And I didn't care. Just put it back. And then I went through, and we got to the end one. And it was an Ernst Benz. And it was a pretty big size watch. And he's like, hey, go ahead and try this one on. And I had a swatch on at the time. And I went to try it on. He's like, no, dude. You can't have a swatch and that watch on at the same time. Take your swatch off. So I took the swatch off, put the other watch on, and I looked at it, and I was like, wow. Mm-hmm. I feel good. right? I was like, man, that's amazing. I was looking at it, and it was, And he said, it looks good on you. You seem to love it. It's yours. And I was like, oh, man, I can't believe it. This is so amazing. I can't, I was like just dumbfounded. And he was like, man, someone should have given you a watch a long time ago because if it makes you that happy. And that's all it took. Someone should have given you a watch a long, long time ago. But I got the watch and I put it on, and it reminded me to talk about what other people are passionate about. Because when I talked about Panerai to him, watches was his whole life. So I had this watch, and I was telling everyone about the watches, and I was like, wow, and it always reminded me to tell or talk about what other people are passionate about. So then I go to New York, and I'm in New York, and I walk into a store, and we're shopping, and we're going to check out of the store. And as we're going to check out of the store, this guy has a watch on. Well, I have a watch, and I want, you ever compliment someone on something because you have something good on too, and you want them to compliment you? You know what I'm saying? Like, oh wow, you got good dreadlocks. Oh, you got oh, thank you. I didn't even know you noticed. But I saw him, he had a watch on, and I was like, oh man, it's a nice watch. And he goes, oh, I don't wear it that often, but thank you. And I said, well, you don't wear it that often, but you should, because that's an amazing watch. It looks great on you. I think you should wear it all the time. So me and my friend are walking out of the store. It was Vivian Westwood in New York, and we're walking out of the store, and she reaches in the bag, and she goes to show me her Vivian Westwood, so I thought, but she reached in and grabbed a hold of his watch. And she said, hey, the guy in the store took his watch off and gave it to you because you complimented him on it, and he thought that you should have it. So I was thinking, man, this is so cool, and I wasn't going to give it back because he had given it to me. It's my watch now. So I put it on. So I have two watches. I have the one to remind me to talk about people I'm passionate about, and I have one to remind me to always compliment people. So I have two watches on. I'm walking around, and now I'm looking at people, and I see a watch on. I'm like, oh, wow, nice watch. And they say, oh, really? You got one? No, I got two. So I'm telling everybody the story of the watch. I got the one that reminds me to talk about people I'm passionate about. I got the one to remind me to compliment people. Then I go home and I'm working in the salon. It was John Mark. John Mark came in and he's working. And he's like, hey man, I just want to show you this watch. And he pulled out this watch and it was a Patek Philippe. Well, it's Patek Philippe, and that's, I mean, no joke. That's the pinnacle of watches. That's the one that all watches go after. They start about $9,000. They go up to anywhere $250,000, $300,000 for the watch. Well, he pulls it out and he's like, bam, I didn't know anything about a Patek Philippe, but he was like, bam, I got a new watch. And I was like, got you. Got two of them. So I had to show him that I had the watches, so I showed him, and he said, you know what? I was just in, what's it called? So we're talking about it, and John Mark would always not make an appointment, and Mindy knows this, he would not make an appointment, and he would just show up. He would always show up, and I would always be like, and it would always be that we'd have 15 minutes, we could take care of him. So what that said to him is, you know what, it's okay just to show up, and we'll just take care of your hair. Because every time, it would just, God would have it happen, where I would just have a cancellation, he'd walk in, and I'd be like, you need to make an appointment. But I have 45 minutes now, so go ahead and sit down. So it didn't tell the right stories. But with John Mark, I had to remember, when I first got into business, I got in this business to be a servant to people, not to feed my ego. So when he sat down, he was talking about his stuff. He was doing it. He had actually made an appointment that day. For the first time, he made an appointment. And he came in, and he sat down. And when he was talking, he was like, hey, I just was in a meeting, and a guy gave me a watch. And he said, it's not my personality, but I would like you to have it, and I want to give it to you. And if you tell me where if I don't get it to you by the end of the day, then tell me where you're at, and I'll have someone deliver it. Well, by the end of the day, he hadn't showed up. And I was like, I'm calling his ass because I'm getting my watch. So I called him and told him I was going to Z Tejas. We went out to Z Tejas, and one of his friends named Waleed, you guys all know Waleed. Waleed showed up, and he showed up with a watch. Now, the first watch that I told you about was a Panerai that I said, oh man, this is so incredible. I love that watch to death. That's what I talked about. So I had the one to talk about what people are passionate about, or I had the one to remind me to compliment people. And then John Mark had Waleed deliver the watch, and he walks in, and honestly, when he broke out the watch, it almost brought tears to my eyes. Because he reaches in and pulls it out. And I never told him or John Mark what I had wanted and what my pinnacle of watches was. But he reaches in and pulls out a Panerai. And hands me the Panerai. This is the watch that I needed to deliver to you. That's a $5,500 watch. So I take it, and I wasn't going to be, some people are like, oh no, you shouldn't have.
I was like, oh no, you should have, because I like it a lot, and I'm not giving it back. So I snatched it, and I put it on my wrist. I put it on the other side. So I had the one to talk about what people are passionate about. I had the one to remind me to compliment people. And then the third watch that I got when I put it on, then I looked at it, and I said, you know what? This one will remind me of why I got in the business, and that was to be a servant to people and not to be egotistical about people making an appointment or not making an appointment, to realize that that's why I got in the business and to remind me why I got in the business. So now I have 3 watches on, and I go to Nashville, and I go in, and Robert's like, hey man, we're getting down to the end. He's like, Kelly, tell the story. So I got on, I said, I got the one to talk about people passionate about. I got the one to talk about compliment people. I got the one to remind me why I'm in the business. And I get done, and a person just throws a watch. And I don't know, have you guys ever had like cat-like reflexes and you didn't know what was happening? Have you guys ever driven 5-10 miles and then looked up from your phone and realized, like, how did I get here? I said the phone thing because some of you are like, not the phone, but you know, I had a little bit to drink and I had no idea how I got 45 miles home. But I want you to understand, I was just standing there, and I don't know why I did it, but I just went like this. And I did that, and boom, and it just caught a watch, and somebody threw a watch at me. I was thinking, that's rude, but I got another watch, so I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to complain. So I took it, and I just put it right on my wrist. Now, this was actually a Lucky Charms watch out of a Lucky Charms box. So I had the one to talk about what people are passionate about. I had the one to remind me to compliment people. I had the one to remind me why I was in the business. And the fourth one reminded me that always to tell the story, because you never know how many people will be blessed just by telling the story. So now I have the 4 watches on, and I'm literally wearing all 4 watches. And when I'm walking around, I'm seriously pop-locking, because I'm like, hey, watches, 4 of them. You only got 1. I got 4. People are always asking, why you got 4? Do you have 30 minutes? So I went up to Canada. We went up to Canada. Me and my buddy Abe, we were doing a class, and we went around and we asked everybody how their day was, or what we could make better. And we went around and we said, what do you want from the class? And then at the end we said, what can we make better? And at first people were asking different things. And then we said, what did you get from the class? And I told this guy was like, why are you wearing 4 watches? And Abe was like, oh man, you don't want to hear this one. And I said, well, I'll tell you the story when we're down towards the end. So I went through, told the story about the one that talked about people passionate about, one to compliment people, one to remind me why I was in the business, and the one to tell the story. And when I got done, the guy went to take his watch off, and I was like, no, sir, don't do that. So he takes off his watch, and but he had said a comment that was probably the most important comment that I had ever heard in my entire life. Because I went through the whole thing, and we asked him, like, what'd you get from today? And he said to me, every single class that I've ever been to, everybody has always shoved product down my throat, has shoved something down my throat, tried to sell me on something. And he said, you know what you guys did? You came in here, you told us about your successes, and once you told us about your successes, then you told us about what you used. And he said, that hit me harder than anything, because everybody's just trying to sell me something. And after he said that comment, we went around the room, and then I told the watch story, the one to compliment people, the one to remind, one to help me out. The passionate, or talk about what other people are passionate about, the one to compliment people, the one to remind me while I was in the business, and the one to remind me to tell the story. And when I got done, he started to take his watch off, and I said, no, sir. And he said, no, I want you to have it. And he handed me the watch. And that one meant the most, because I had the one to talk about what people are passionate about, the one to compliment people, the one to remind me why I was in the business, the one to remind me to tell the story, and the 5th and final watch, when I picked it up from him, helped me to remember that the most important thing that you'll ever sell in your life is yourself, and until that, nothing else will be sold. By the way, guys, I use Paul Mitchell. I had a wonderful day. I hope you guys I ran a little bit over time. We had said we were going to go till about 3:30, but it was one of those things where we wanted to be able to spend that extra little bit of time with you guys. We had an incredible time, and it's amazing because as soon as we start is as soon as we finish. We want you to be a part of our next academy. The next one that we have is actually in Chicago. It's on March 11th. It's actually the next weekend. So it's going to be on the 11th and 12th in March. So we got that one set. We want you guys to be a part of it. We had an incredible time, and we just really, really appreciate you. So I know we did run over time. If some of you guys have time constraints that you guys have to take off, we completely understand. I would like to be able to take a little bit of time if you guys are open for it. If you guys have any questions for the crew or any of us or anything like that, can you grab me a couple of treasures, because I'll give away prizes if they ask questions. So that'll, oh, there we go, perfect.